Hey, espresso lovers, Mark here with Zach from Latte Love. Zach's right in the middle of pulling some crema wave. We've got a really cool setup today. We've got an ECM Synchronica 2, Pressensor app, an AccuPro scale, all connected together. We're going to be tasting a lot of espresso today. I think 7 shots, Zach?
Yeah, around 7 shots. I did wait all day for this, so I only had about 6 shots before this.
But we got a graph going up here. We'll talk about what that is all about. And I mean, let's get right into our first tasting, right? We will be taking your questions here. So I see we have Persepolis down in there. I don't have the beard today, buddy. Zach does. But we're going to taste a lot. Then we're going to use some flow control on Synchronica 2, right?
Yep.
We're going to show how we can use a press sensor to help us get a basic dial in maybe. Then also do some flow control manipulation to affect things like flavor and mouthfeel. And then take a look at how that looks on the graph and how we can repeat it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So today is really going to be based off of taste. So you might have seen our video on the press sensor where we were kind of describing some different techniques that you can really use to approach different kinds of coffees. Well, now we're really going to taste each thing and what pre-infusion does for you, what ramp downs do, how I approach different kinds of coffees like light roasts and our basic crema wave, which with this shot right now, we just did a basic dial-in approach.
Yeah, we already had it dialed in, right?
Yeah, we already had it pretty well dialed in. So this is a pretty regular 18-gram shot today.
But let's take a look at that graph real quick. We can bring that full. So tell us what we're looking at here, Zach, real quick.
So as you can see here, right before this graph, it would spike up. We did the auto start with this one. And as you can see on this, I don't quite like the auto start because it doesn't really track my pre-infusion. This kind of starts tracking right at that top line of things.
So the top line is our pressure.
So our top line is our pressure. And as you can see, our pressure actually declines over time because we're actually becoming more and more permeable. Our basket is allowing more permeability. And it's actually allowing more and more flow. Now, you'll see more and more flow being allowed with denser coffees, something like a dark roast in our crema wave. You don't see too much of a difference, but there might be some things that we want to do with this.
And we may see some difference in some of that. We're going to get into, it's a Brazilian single origin roasted about a week ago, right?
Exactly, which is a pretty dense roast too. So you'll see that our permeability is going to be way different. We might see a lot more flow. We'll kind of see what our different techniques are going to kind of bring to the table with that.
And back to the graph real quick. Let's just get a look. So the kind of orangish line there, that's our flow.
That is our flow. And what we're really looking for is that nice linear line. So not too little area underneath that curve. If it has too little area underneath the curve, we're going to show that in a second. Your grind size might be a little too fine, or you might be experiencing a lot of jamming. Or something like your fines migrating and kind of causing a lot of jamming might have a little area towards the beginning of this flow as well.
Okay.
So there's a couple little cues that we're going to be able to identify as we're pulling these shots, and we'll see how that lines up to certain flavor profiles as well.
And kind of a cool thing here is we can save these graphs. So if you pull that really special shot one time, you can say, oh, that's what I did to get there. Manipulating flow, we're going to get much deeper into that. But
exactly, and we can easily get into our history. And even with this last graph that I pulled, as you can see, I have a bunch of notes that I can actually keep track of everything I've done, even down to the grinder that I actually used in the grinder setting. So I can really set that as a reference if I'd like, or just share the overview with a friend if it's something that I did really like.
All right, well, I got to taste our very first. This was a standard dialed-in shot. We're going to go through and show you what that graph looks like if we're too fine, too coarse, and then maybe one manipulation on the crema wave here, right, to see what we could do.
So this is probably outside of our 90 seconds of what we're going to actually be tasting most of our shots today, but we're going to go ahead and give this a taste. So pretty solid, nice overall sweetness. It definitely goes into maybe like a tartaric acid. So maybe malic acid too, so it kind of tastes like bananas on your tongue. It's a little drying effect afterwards too.
I did get that. I was pulling a shot earlier today in our other studio there, and boy, I got a super sweet shot out of the crema wave. And so I think that we could probably do a little improvement on this, or maybe just taste it a little sooner. I don't know.
Yeah, we could taste it a little sooner. So one improvement that a lot of people go to would be grind size.
Yeah.
So when adjusting grind size, this is going to be your biggest factor when changing that body or overall extraction percentage as well. So the amount of fines that you're producing, those immediate solubles within your cup are really going to shine when changing that grind size. So if we were to go a lot finer on this, we might see a lot of jamming, might increase our body from there, but might become salty. Don't know if that's quite the way.
So let's change our grind coarser here. See what that profile looks like if our grind's like maybe a little too coarse, right?
Yeah. So let's go a little bit coarser, and there might even be some flavor attributes that we even like off of a coarser. So.
And then we can do some different things with that. So we're using a Chiato Chameleon grinder. It's a single doser, flat burr grinder. So we were at like a 1.2 and a slight plus. And we're going to take it up to, looks like we're at 1.7 here and see what we get. We are using 18-gram doses. That's what we're going to use all day long. We're using an 18-gram basket. I want to mention we're also using this guy here. We'll talk a little bit more about that. One of the only tampers that you could air tamp with. You know, I've seen people take a tamper and kind of like hold their portafilter up and do this. You don't want to do that. But honestly, with this one, you could. Because it's an automatic tamper.
Yeah.
Really cool little device.
And the key thing about all the tools that we're going to be using today, it's just about keeping all those other variables out of the picture. We don't have to think about them. They're as constant as possible. So the only thing that's going to be changing our flavor perception today is really our pressure profiles. And even our grind size will be pretty similar throughout today too. And then we're also going to show the difference of temperature and flow as well, and temperature and our tasting profile.
Yes, for instance, we're set like 200, 201 here for this medium roast, sort of crema wave. We'll adjust that when we go to the Brazilian single origin. We're going to take that temperature up just a little bit, right?
Exactly. And as you can see, I'm using an RDT today, so Ross droplet technique. It's winter right now, so there's a lot of static in the air.
Kind of dry.
It's kind of dry, so definitely is needed for most grinders. And I'm just going to go ahead and do a hot start with this today.
You are using the dosing funnel there with our grinder?
Yeah, the Chiato dosing funnel. I'm just going to go straight to portafilter today. It's going to be a little bit quicker instead of going to maybe a dosing cup.
A little bellows action there. That's going to help with a single dosing grinder to get all your grind out of there. One really nice thing for changing grind size a couple times with a single doser is you don't have to grind coffee off if you're going to adjust finer. You're not going to have coffee left behind in the grinder, that kind of thing. If you're going to switch coffees, which we're going to do, and that's one of the reasons why we chose a single doser today. Exactly.
And this Chameleon with that 64 millimeter burr, flat burr. You can change these burrs out to a bunch of different options. So I think this is a great single dose approach. I've had no issues with any sort of mess or retention so far, especially when utilized with an RDT tool. And then with a simple distribution afterwards, you have that very Chiato-like fluffy ground.
Yeah, it really is a nice grind in there.
So, yeah. Again, we're just going to keep this as similar as possible throughout everything today.
So we have the Bose from Boston. It's from Boston Electronics. The Bose tamper here. It's this automatic tamper. It makes it so you don't have to think about what you're doing, and you get real consistency. Again, espresso is a game of variables, right? And the more that you can keep all the variables the same and work with one at a time is going to really help you focus in on flavor if that's what you want to do, right?
Exactly. So we're not going to worry about tamp. Grind size we'll keep as similar as possible, except for right now. We're going to see how this changes our flavor profile and see if we can manipulate that, maybe even using pressure.
Okay.
We'll see.
So much coarser grind size here. And again, with the Pressensor app, we're going to track all this. We have connected the Varia Pro scale to the app as well. So we've got the Pressensor here. Let me show you what that really looks like while we're doing it. So it's this guy right here. This goes, if you have flow control on your machine, you probably have a pressure gauge on there like this, which is great. Gives you a little information.
Yeah.
But once it's gone, right?
Exactly. This will give you stuff to actually track. Yeah.
All right.
All right, so we're going to stick with that same basic dial-in, and we're going to just see what this shows according to our flow chart on this. So we're going to go
coarser grind, so we should expect a much faster flow, right?
Exactly. And this time I'm actually going to manually press our start too, so we can see that immediate saturation too, how long it's taking to kind of saturate our puck as well. I feel like there's some important information that we would like from the press sensor.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and hit start capturing, pull this shot.
We can see right away our flow, we're not at that 45 degrees anymore, right?
Woo! And that's literally already all she wrote.
So if we taking a look at that graph, we never got anywhere near like maybe a pressure we were looking for, right? And our flow rate was just kind of through the roof.
Yeah. So there's no linearity between this. As you can see, it can only pick up so many actual data points too, so you can almost see it blocking up.
Yeah.
So this is a clear sign that I need to adjust my grind size, or I need to be adjusting my actual pressure profile if I like some sort of tasting notes that come from this. We can manipulate our pressure in order to utilize this course of grind size, but
now, because as we always say, we should taste everything, right?
Yes,
so
yes, always.
We'll see what we get here, right? And we also promised we were going to do at least 7 tastings in our time here. So let's see. Oh yeah.
It's funny because there is something that I like in there, but it is coming across very under extracted.
Yes.
So almost on the watery side, but the aftertaste is really nice. So there's something really nice happening from that aftertaste that it might be worth, controlling a pressure profile to really hone in on what's happening there. So
yes, very watery as would be expected. Kind of.
So a couple things that we can actually do to get rid of a watery puck. If maybe let's say that we're dialed into this coarse grind size, and that's as fine as we can possibly go. Maybe it's up to our grinder of the step adjustments that we can actually make. We can't go any finer than this. We can still make it possible by adjusting this in order to give us a proper shot. So we'll be going into a few techniques like that when approaching our light roast.
So that grind was too coarse. Now we want to see one that's way too fine, right?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it.
So you want me to clean that up for you? Okay.
Why, thank you. All right, so I'm going to adjust this now all the way into our 0.9 range.
So that's about 0.3 below where we were dialed in.
Exactly. So with this, what we can expect to see is possibly a lot of jamming, where basically all of those fines and everything created within our puck is now solidifying before we can even get a proper extraction. So that's one thing that happens with all those fines and going that fine. Yes, it's increasing our extraction percentage of what is soluble, but those solubles actually start bonding together at that point and create just flat disc we can't get past.
So taking a look at our last graph, just to get a little perspective here, right? So we had super high flow rate, never got to any sort of, reasonable pressure. What did we hit, 6 and change there?
Yep.
And so this time when we're grinding too fine, we're probably going to see a much flatter flow if maybe, we don't choke the machine, which is a possibility.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to see kind of a max pressure and probably stock pressure
and just
on
stay there.
Our pressure profile. And it's probably just going to stay there the whole entire time, and we'll probably see little, if any, flow output. So
all right.
We'll see what happens.
Let's give it a go, huh?
All right. And I'm actually going to go ahead and set this as a reference too, just so we can kind of see
get a comparison.
That course comparison. All right, so I'm just going to go to history here. Espresso 20, so this was that very, very coarse dial in. We're going to set this as a reference just so we can see how much is going to be really changing with this next one. So again, we're going to keep our dose exactly the same. We have our scale still connected.
Okay, I've got you 18 3/100ths of a gram. I think that's close enough.
I don't think I should probably start doing that every time.
Oh, go the 300ths over?
Yes.
Good luck.
All right.
You'll be breaking apart the beans with your fingers to do that.
I feel like I've done worse.
Yeah. I've taken a bean, split it, and split it again, just to know that I'm absolutely perfect, right? When we're doing videos, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
But I'll tell you, in all honesty, if I'm within 0.2 of a gram on a dose, I'm happy with that.
Oh yeah, you're not going to see any major difference within both your extraction percentage and taste.
Yeah.
Within 0.3 grams.
I mean, if you do the math, the percentage there, I think it's well under 1% difference in actual dose level. And if you can taste that, we want to talk to you.
Oh yeah, definitely. We'll invite you into our cupping lab. All right.
All right.
So nice, even distribution. Trying to keep everything similar as possible every single time. Mm-hmm. And same tamp pressure.
And the Bose here, it's going to give you about 25 pounds tamp force. Now tell me, how do you feel about tamping force? Because it used to be, if you went back a decade or so, it's like, oh, you got to do 30 pounds, or you got to do this, or you got to do that. And I've always been kind of the opinion is, as long as you're doing it the same every time, again, that consistency.
Exactly.
Right?
So it's all about consistency. Technically, you can reach the same exact extraction percentage within 25 pounds and 65 pounds of pressure, and it won't really matter too much. Really what matters is you actually just creating enough of a flat tamped surface that it doesn't have as much ability for that permeability, differences in permeability throughout the shot. So opening up little crevices for channeling or anything like that. Or your fines will kind of settle in a different way if you don't tamp the whole entire consistently in the whole entire way.
I mean, I look at it as like, once you've got it compressed to a certain point, it's really not going to go anymore, right? I mean, there's only so far you can go. So.
All right, so with this one, we're going to be too fine. Again, our head space has also changed within this, but we're not going to concern ourselves too much of that. But it does kind of change your overall extraction. Or can change your overall extraction.
And head space, we're referring to that, the amount of space between your sour screen and the surface of the compressed coffee.
Exactly. So some of you might actually see that within, really dried out or wet pucks. That doesn't actually change your extraction necessarily, or whatever's happening during your extraction, but it definitely gives you a significant sign at the end of what is happening if you need to dose a little bit more, just for a more even extraction ability.
Okay.
So, all right. So let's go ahead and grab 2 of these cups. We might even run out.
And we're going to keep that up as a reference, because that's a nice thing you can do is you can pull up a shot before and you can kind of like follow along. We did that in another video where we had a little competition to see who could manipulate flow best to follow an existing graph.
Just in case no one saw that.
Yeah.
But, yeah. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and compare this shot now. And I'm just going to go ahead and start that. As you can see, it just shot straight up to our stock bar pressure. We are currently kind of flatlined with that flow and still have absolutely no drip yet. So
I see, it's just starting to make
it's just starting to make its way out. We'll start seeing that flow increase. And as you can see, our pressure is slowly now dropping, because this will reflect on each other. As you increase your flow, you will decrease your pressure.
And as we're going along here, we're recording time as well, flow rate, at the moment, grams per second, and of course the graph. And we're starting to come up there. Right?
There we go. We're almost there. Again, we're going to try to keep with the same brew ratio if we can even get there at this point.
Well, let's see, we're at 27, 28.
We're just about there. I'm patient enough, I guess.
Why not?
So what we're likely to find within this shot is a lot of our immediate solubles within this. So anything that is actually passing by and moving by our puck are going to be those things that are pretty immediately soluble, that can really escape that solid puck.
Yeah.
So it might be pretty salty, I would say. Just letting you know, that's some of our immediate
expectations.
Yeah, that's my expectation of what this is going to be like. It's definitely going to have a lot of body because of those immediate solubles that will actually be able to be allowed through on this shot. But as you can see,
that's a
little
little
bit of a
over.
bite. Yeah, so definitely initial bite. The mouthfeel is very heavy, so this is definitely a high extracted body. I have no sweetness in this whatsoever. No. I think the only way that we could possibly get sweetness is if we somehow saturate our puck and all those solubles, initial solubles, to somehow allow a little bit more flow through. But it's not a grind size that I would recommend whatsoever.
Yeah, and it was very dry.
Very, very dry.
Very dry finish, like a heavy red, heavy red wine or something.
Definitely. So if we look at our graph, you can see there is a huge difference between these two shots with that coarse size and this finer size. Again, it all kind of comes through with this, basically the area underneath our flow curve is what we're really looking for. With that nice shot being pulled also, within our brewing time and ratio and window. So we're wanting some sort of linear flow chart with this, and then the pressure is something that we can actually change. So this is a very stock bar pressure, very regular sort of dial in. So I actually approach this a little bit differently if we actually want to dial this coffee in now by using a couple of the techniques that we actually showed on our video.
Yeah, so we're gonna do one more creme away before we move on to that single origin Brazilian and go a little more in depth on flavor. But what do you think we can do like with some flow from our initial dialed in shot, which was pretty good?
Yeah,
right?
Not too bad.
If I say, let's say, I like that first one that we did, but maybe is there a way we can bring out something, maybe some more sweetness or something with that?
Yeah, so I think with that sweetness, I just want to ensure that we're going to have a good overall extraction. We're not having any sort of fines migration of those fines being kind of pushed towards the bottom of our basket and maybe causing any channeling or uneven extractions throughout that. So what I'm going to do with this next one is actually a pre-infusion. Do like a 5-second pre-infusion, kind of a custom pre-infusion into that, and see how that affects our overall mouthfeel as well, and then overall sweetness and body. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, let me knock this one out for you. And I do see a question there that I'm going to answer while we've got this out. Let's see, who was it? Oh, Peter Crandall, what basket were you looking? Hey, Peter, good eyes, because this is not a stock ECM basket. This is a Barista Pro 18-gram basket. So good eyes there. And let's see. I'll get us weighed up here.
All right. I'm going to get a good profile as a kind of a baseline extraction for us. So I'm just going to set this baseline for us just to see how our pre-infusion reacts to our kind of stock bar pressure, or stock dial-in that we actually did previously.
Okay. I'm splitting beans
you're
here.
Them. You're
I'm within 1/100th of a gram.
I love it.
So there you go.
Man after my own heart. All right, so I'll go ahead and do this process here. And we do have comments down below, so if you have any questions whatsoever, we're reading those.
Yeah, yep.
Oh, yes.
And while you're doing that, how do I prevent my machine from getting lime scales? It's safe for my heat exchange machine to descale every 3 months. Well, how do you prevent it? You filter your water first before you use it so you don't get scale at all. Got a bunch of videos that cover, I got one right here. One way if you're using a reservoir is something like this, a BWT alkalizer pitcher, which removes calcium, adds magnesium, really simplified explanation of that, but use that as directed and you will not get scale on your machine, and that's the best way to do that. Problem with heat exchange boilers, it's really difficult unless you really know what you're doing to fully fill them with a descaling solution and then to fully rinse them out because they do have headspace in there for the steam.
That's another consistency that we're actually utilizing today are those BWT magnesium infused or ion exchanged filters over there, so we're not worried about our water chemistry. That water chemistry is going to stay the same, so it doesn't actually influence too much of our flavor profiles today. Yeah,
there's traditional water softening using sodium-based solutions, and what we found out, and BWT has found out through lots and lots of taste testing, is that the magnesium is a much better flavor extractor from coffee than something like sodium-based softened water.
Yeah, and it's even currently the filter used by SCA.
Yeah.
So we're using this within competitions and everything like that.
Yeah, Best of Panama
Yeah,
down
Best-
there. That's
Best
what
of
they were
Panama
using.
as well.
They were
Yep.
the water supplier for Best of Panama, which some of the finest coffees in the world.
All right. So we have that all tamped and ready to go.
All right, so
All
the
right.
thought here to maybe bring out a little some sweetness or a little extra body or something. What are we
Yeah,
going to do?
we're going to see. I'm going to actually put you to the test to see what you identify came out from that previous shot. From
Okay.
our original dial-in, which you already liked, by the way.
This one way back here.
Yeah,
which
the
I
one
still-
way back there.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to start with that flow control turned off here. And I'll introduce a little bit of a pre-infusion. I'm just going to go shoot for about a 5-second pre-infusion here.
Okay.
All right, so I'm all teared out, ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and start my graph right now.
We are using an ECM Synchronica 2 here. This has programmable active and passive pre-infusion. If you didn't have flow control on it and wanted to use some of that.
All right, as we can see, just a little bit different. That flow is pushed off a little bit further. And I'm going to stop it right there.
Okay.
Stop our shot.
It was about 28 seconds there is what I saw on you.
Yeah, and with that 5-second pre-infusion or so, maybe a little bit past that as we approach almost a 10-second range.
right.
So let's go ahead and see
Thank you.
what that does.
Looks nice up top here.
All right, again, I'm going to wait for your notes. He has to think about it for a second.
No, I did get a little more sweet hit
Yeah,
right off the top.
initial sweet.
Actually, yeah.
The body isn't as harsh, I would say. I think it's just like an overall smooth, it's a little bit more velvety on a texture, and it doesn't have that astringent like undertone throughout the shot.
No, I mean, I did get a little sweetness from the first one. It seemed like it lasted longer. The sweetness like lingered a little bit more.
Throughout the whole entire thing on this.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So I think that's a general outcome of what we get from pre-infusions, just because it is fully saturating and kind of preparing that puck for an overall extraction. That usually has a lot to do with the ability to keep a similar temperature throughout the actual saturation of that puck too, because that similar temperature will have the similar sweetness profiles and maybe even more sweetness profiles throughout it, where we're kind of shocking the system on this original one, where the top of the puck is going to have a lot higher temperature than the bottom of your puck with that just kind of forceful saturation. So this one, a little bit more
I did like this
similar,
better, and as it cools just a little bit in my cup, and I don't like to taste super, super hot, so if it cools a little bit, I'm good because I feel like I taste more.
Yeah, and I feel like this one actually, as it
Yeah.
cools, still very sippable. That
Oh,
one
yeah.
went pretty astringent.
Yeah.
Almost bitter as it sat. This one is definitely more sippable over time.
Very nice. All right, before we forget, because we're going to move on to that Brazilian single origin, roasted about a week ago. We do want to take our temperature up a little bit, right, for that coffee?
We did have one question. Compared to the previous shot, what changes did we make? So all we changed was basically a pre-infusion, a 5-second,
Yeah.
10-second pre-infusion, that initial saturation with about 3 bars or so of like a slow permeability.
Yeah, I
to
mean,
that
you can
shot.
see that
And
if we
then-
take the
yeah.
graph here real quick, you can see kind of what happened. So that's our second one started lower, right? With the flow started at about 10 seconds here.
Yep, exactly. And you can see I kind of slowly got into that pressure increase instead of just like a nice big jump, a nice big spike.
So I like that one, so we can save that and say, hey, here's the one that I want to do, when I get this coffee again in a month or two or something, right?
Exactly. And now I
or
can kind
tomorrow.
of just go through and save that one. So if I really liked that one, I can go through. This is my last shot that I saved, and I can just go ahead and edit this one too. Right on here, that this was a great crema wave.
Yeah, maybe we could, if we can take the screen there and just show what's going on. Yeah. So you're just adding the notes in there. You'll be able to pull this back up in the app. You can even share this.
Oh, yeah, and you can even share
the
this.
files out of the an iPad or an iPhone.
Exactly. And you'll see
make other notes as well.
Yeah, and you'll see the overall time and your weight, dose, and I can even put in the fact that we were using a chameleon, probably like freshly off of new burrs. Yeah. So we can even compare this to later on too. Maybe it'll actually tell me that it's like, hey, maybe I need to swap out my burrs too.
Okay.
If I'm seeing any differences. So, all right.
All right. So did we get our temperature? Oh, let's get our temperature up here a little bit, right?
All right. So
I'll take care of that for you.
One key thing is when I'm changing my temperatures, this is a common approach that I do with a lot of light roast or a lot of different coffees that I'm approaching, because with a higher temperature, you have different taste compounds that are going to be then extracted and available. Changing your temperature will actually not change your overall extraction, but we're actually extracting different kinds of taste compounds, different kinds of acids throughout. So when approaching a new coffee, I might start at a low end temperature and see what kind of compounds are released there. At higher temperatures, you're actually extracting a lot more of your aroma compounds. So a lot of the coffees that taste or smell really nice, I usually like to increase those that temperature for the initial approach of that coffee. So I'm going to go ahead and increase this for this Brazil because I feel like it does have some additional acids that are not so prevalent within this blend, and we might be able to utilize it a little bit more.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I mean, there's some basic thought, right, that, with a lighter roast, which is typically going to have a lot of those compounds that, you generally might use a higher temperature, and, really darker roast, you might go lower temperature. It's not always true. And, like we were talking earlier, you should always experiment with a coffee and see what you get from it.
Exactly.
You might find something you really like there.
Yeah, the key takeaway is that it doesn't actually change your overall extraction, maybe just slightly. Mainly just change what you're extracting, what compounds you're extracting.
Right. All right. So I'll weigh you out here. This, I got to tell you, that does smell nice.
So one thing that you'll actually see within your graph, though, as you increase your temperature, you can actually increase your actual restriction too. So gases are actually changing its compound. I don't want to go too far into it, but we'll actually see a little bit more restriction due to those the interaction of gases as well. So.
And I'm 18.04 this time, so oh boy, didn't quite nail it, but I think
I don't know. I'm gonna take out one. I think. Oh, we can't. Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
And our grind is back to where we started initially, right, with the crema wave on our very first shot in the stream.
Exactly.
And that's where we're going to start here.
Yeah.
It's pretty rare that you're going to switch coffees and use exactly the same grind size.
Yeah.
I always tell people, I think there's a misconception out there. Oh, I got my grinder all dialed in, now I can put anything in there, and that's what I want to grind at. No.
Nope, not at all.
Not at all. As a coffee ages, as you change coffees, you're going to need to adjust your grind size a little bit.
Yeah, so this will actually give you that restriction. So as you have fresher coffee, there's a lot of CO2 and things that will actually create that restriction. That, of course, your coffee's off-gassing over time. Temperature is another thing that we can actually change to, help create that a little bit.
Example I use of that off-gassing, right, is if you ever done a pour over and you see it really bloom up, right?
Yep.
You have really fresh coffees, it's got all that CO2 in there. You gotta let that gas get out of there before the water can get in and do its thing.
All right, so with these denser, lighter roasts, they can prove themselves pretty difficult to extract.
Especially really fresh, right?
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of these are just they refuse to be extracted, to summarize it. So we need to utilize a lot of different techniques in order to really extract it. Maybe there's some nice notes towards a coarser side that's really providing itself a nice sweetness or something, and we might have to change our pressure profiles in order to do so. But we'll see what happens with this lighter roast, how this density is going to combat us.
Now, are we going to do just a straight, like no flow manipulation on the first one, or do you want to give it that pre-infusion right off the go?
Let's go ahead and try this one off the go, right at stock bar, and we'll see what actually happens, and actually use visual cues to see if we need to change anything. I think it's going to definitely prove itself towards the beginning of the shot, that it might kind of subtly drip into an extraction, and then it might get watery pretty quick as well. That tends to happen with these dense roasts. Again, it's refusing to be extracted. It almost bypasses.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times it really does bypass.
All
So
right.
let's go ahead and use those visual cues and our graph in order to predict those changes.
Again, we're doing that same 18 gram dose. We're going to go stock flow rate on this one and see where we're at. And then we'll use a couple different flow techniques to see what we can do to improve or pull certain things out.
Definitely. All right. So again, I have our same overview as before, our first shot of the day. And we'll see how this actually compares. I'll do a manual start again, and let's go ahead and get that flow on the board. Perfect. All right, again, we're pulling at stock bar pressure, kind of our basic dial-in technique here. So initially, it's taking a little bit longer for that first drip. So, you know, that's a clear sign that we might need to saturate our puck a little bit to help along that full even extraction, because quickly we start kind of dripping and my shot is starting to already look pretty watery. So it's not like I can actually then change my grind size necessarily, because I'm already looking at like a pretty watery puck. So I think my first reaction to this sort of graph is to start utilizing my tools in my workhouse. What is it? Is that what the term is?
Sure.
Yeah, the tools in my toolbox.
Yes.
I don't know the different things that we taught on that last video. There we go.
Sure.
So let's go ahead and try these. And again, the visual cues were there that it took a while to initially get that first drip.
Yeah.
Which can be okay. We're going to test it and see. But it then actually turned pretty watery. You can tell there was a lot of bypass initially right away as well. All right, so there's a lot of sweetness actually.
Yeah. Initial was I got just a little bit of a woodsy flavor off the top, a real initial hit of that, but then it dropped into sweetness.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a green earthy is usually what we like to call that sort of flavor profile. That earthiness is typically not a good thing unless it really comes off as like sweet. So I do get an overall sweetness from this, and I think that has to do more with the compounds that are now available from the temperature that we increased it to. So there's something good that happened there with that temperature increase. So I'm going to keep that same temp, but I think in order to maybe step away from that under-extracted earthiness to it, we're going to try to enrich in this extraction almost by that pre-saturation, focus on a pre-saturation and also maybe a ramp down. Okay. So as we could see, the flow was really changing with that curve exponentially towards the end here, and it got watery really fast. Right. So I think we're going to combat that a little bit so it's a little bit more linear by then utilizing a ramp down technique.
All right. Well, let's give that one a go.
So as our shot is becoming more and more permeable and we can actually get through that actual puck a lot easier because it's losing its resistance over time, we want to combat that by using our flow control. So we can actually start decreasing our flow and our pressure because we don't need all that pressure over time. We're already extracting, we're already pulling through. We can actually decrease our pressure and not rely on the natural pressure decrease that's happening due to that permeation. All right.
We'll get you going here again.
Perfect. Let's see how well you do this time.
Oh my gosh.
Oh no. There we go.
Hey, right on the money.
Perfect.
18.00. Again, I don't think, even a 0.1 is going to make a difference on that, but
I don't know, Mark.
But it's like a challenge, right?
It is a challenge. All right, so same techniques as always. I'm actually going to keep the grind size exactly the same, so it's not a variable that is going to be changing this time. All right, hot start again.
And hot start just means, we're turning on the grinder, a single doser, before we're dumping the beans in there.
All right, same distribution. All right.
Good.
That's a pretty puck if I ever did see one. My aerial tamp.
Aerial tamp. Again, don't do that with a normal tamper.
All right. And now that we have a nice pretty puck, let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and close my flow control so I can start with my pre-infusion. Again, there's a stock pre-infusion that you can actually program within your machine on these Synchronicas and many machines out there. You can utilize that for your pre-infusion, so you can just focus on that ramp down if it's a little too much to really be focusing on your flow control. I think it's pretty easy once you really start following this graph up here. And that's one of the great things about the press sensor, is that you can kind of follow this graph more so than remember exactly where you were with your flow control. This is really going to be showing you where you are.
Now, I was pulling some shots earlier on the Synchronica too, using that automatic programmable active and passive pre-infusion with the press sensor, and it was really fun to see what happened on the graph. You could really see what was going on there.
All right, so the next approach here, I'm going to do that pre-infusion, and I'll show a ramp down technique with this one. So I'm actually going to go ahead and
pre-infusion plus ramp down, yes?
Exactly. So I'm going to set this last shot as a reference now, so we can just see the comparison here. All right. Scales all to, and I'll go ahead and manually start. Going to a pre-infusion and up to stock bar pressure. And already I'm having some telltale signs of a little bit more of a healthy shot. There's a little bit of a darker, richer color to it, showing that it's a little bit more evenly extracted. I'm starting that ramp down process now. And within our graph, you can see that it just kind of teeters off just a little bit more within this. So those...
So that lower pressure line is the second one here.
Exactly.
Where you drop that down.
We're maybe bypassing some of the tannins that might come off through that kind of watery puck that's happening. A lot of the times, certain acids will actually find itself available through kind of that watery visual. So whenever you see that, you will see a difference in taste as well, specifically tannins. All right. Very sweet initially.
Yes, yeah. I didn't get any of that green woody thing off the top this time at all.
No, so no more of that green woody. It really slaps you in the face of how much of a difference that is.
Oh yeah, that was major.
Yeah. It's like you almost taste it on your lips of like a sugar. Very plum-like, I would say. That's one of my favorite shots so far.
Yeah, I really, that was a lot better than the first one.
Definitely.
A lot better. That really helped a lot.
And this is a really nice Brazil that we have too. So this is like a 87 plus point coffee here. So we can definitely get some nice extractions off of this utilizing the press sensor.
A real big improvement.
A huge improvement.
Big. That makes a really big difference.
Exactly.
Wow.
So there are a couple things that we can do to maybe change that profile too. So we like what happened from temperature so far. We like what happened when we utilize these techniques, but there's also another technique that we can also utilize, and that is a lower flow extraction. So utilizing extractions that are maybe at 6 bar or something like that, we can actually start changing that overall extraction percentage. Let's say it's a little too strong of a body, and we want more clarity within this flavor profile. Like I still get like a little bit of a drying effect, so maybe I want to go coarser with my grind size, so I'm not over extracting a little bit or hitting that point of edging towards over extraction.
No, we bring down that use a lower flow throughout.
Exactly.
To get there. So shall we go for that?
Yeah, let's do it. So we're going to have to go a little bit coarser for this one, and we're going to have to utilize our flow control to quickly bounce down to a lower flow or lower bar of pressure in order for us to really hit kind of numbers or taste profiles that we'll enjoy to keep things consistent. So
way up here and
way up.
Okay.
And then we're going to go.
How much going to move? Like
a little bit coarser. I'm going to do
2/10?
one full point or two full points on this Chiato. And naturally, we're going to allow a little bit more of those boulders within this. I mean, not quite boulders, but larger size particles that will, initially actually create a lot of bypass. So we have that chance of creating a lot of channeling bypass with the wrong coffee.
Wrong coffee.
You would have really thrown me off. We have a large chance to actually create a lot of issues when going a lot coarser, but I do like to keep my grind size pretty coarse because of the flavor attributes and clarity that you can get from keeping your grind size that coarse. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can combat this change using flow.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's do it. 17.96 that time, by the way.
Horrible.
Look, I'm always
Absolutely
under 500, okay? Okay, so we've adjusted just a little bit coarser here, right?
Little bit coarser. Again, this is the first change that we've done to this coffee that will actually change our extraction percentage. So actually change our body.
Okay.
All right. Looks absolutely gorgeous again.
And I think we're going to pull this one, see what we get, and then we'll have a few minutes left for some questions here.
Exactly, yep.
So if those are in there, I see we've got Nick in there answering a lot, some other folks answering each other here. Appreciate that a lot.
I just realized it was almost time. Wow.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're drinking a lot of espresso.
Somehow the caffeine, I don't know.
I'm almost awake then.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I'm just about there. All right. So keeping everything else the same. Again, keeping all variables as similar as possible so we can really dial in what's affecting change.
Perfect.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and again use our previous shot.
As a reference for this one, see how they stack up?
Yep.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go to my history here, that last shot, set that as my reference, and I'm ready to go. All right. Which is just in time because we're almost running out of shot glasses.
Yeah, this will be shot number 7.
All right. Tear this out. And again, I'm going to start all the way closed. I'm going to do a pre-infusion and quickly ramp down. So the last ramp down was towards the tip of the shot, or the end of the shot. This one is going to be kind of initially, and the body of the shot is what we're changing.
Okay. So this extraction likely is going to be longer, right?
Correct.
Than the last ones because we're reducing that flow.
And that also depends on how much our grind size is really changing our overall time. And I'm quickly ramping down here.
You see now it looks like initially our flow rates higher there, right?
Correct. Yeah. So we don't quite hit that stock bar because we don't have as much natural restriction from that coffee because we went coarser. This is usually the issue that we really find when just pulling an average shot is that, okay, we don't hit the natural restriction. We quickly extract our shot, so it's never within an appropriate time. Where this was 25 seconds. I went a little over, which is also okay when ramping down. So a lot of the tip of the shot too, or the end of the shot, as you're utilizing a ramp down, actually a specific technique displayed by Danilo Lodi, actually, so SEA head judge, he loves to push it a little bit further when utilizing a ramp down on that extraction. So there's a lot of sweetness that you can get at the tip of that. All right.
Because we had been doing 1 to 2s, and this was like more 1, 2.5.
Exactly. And this is something that is very, very possible when going coarser, utilizing those specific tasting compounds and those acids with this. So
this is our last one, so cheers.
Oh, yeah. So I almost like this one better.
Do you?
Because you still get that initial hit of sweetness that we're finding from that pre-infusion.
I think that, you know, with a pre-infusion, I mean, again, no green woody thing off the top.
But now I'm getting into like almost a milk chocolate is how the rest of the shot kind of flows. So it's very kind of berry-like, plum-like, overall sweet. And then it kind of mellows out into a nice milk chocolate. And the finish is now, instead of like a higher body finish where it like leaves a mouth texture and feel on it, it's now just, it dissipates quicker and it's more like a milk chocolate. So that's why I kind of like to push it a little bit further.
Yeah,
it's a little bit more pleasant.
That sweetness extended out for me a little bit more than the first one.
So each one of those movements is just about extending that finish, that sweetness profile throughout the shot.
Very nice.
So I think utilizing all those techniques, that's how I kind of approach a new coffee. Again, this is a coffee that I actually haven't yet pulled on this machine. This was a brand new approach, but I very much enjoyed this Brazil.
So you would maybe you would save that graph and say, hey, you know, that's the way I like that. And I want to try and duplicate that.
Some of these graphs might not look the prettiest, like there's a little hump within here. Don't worry too much about those fine little details of anything. If anything, you know, maybe you do want to change that. Maybe it's showing you something. Like there are specific things that you can read from this graph that might show you that, oh, right there I saw a lot of channeling if your flow all of a sudden spikes. So you can find some defects also within your workflow by utilizing this graph. Okay.
Let's see. So we do have a few questions here, like a kind of press sensor be installed on the Soleil. It is an E61 machine, right?
Yeah, it's an E61.
Yeah, so you can definitely put it on the Soleil. Somebody helped us out there. Sorry to miss that, Nick. Thank you. Is there a way to update this? An older Synchronica, a newer version? I'm guessing no. You're guessing no, and I'm guessing no.
It's a whole different kind of brew group. This one actually has a little bit of a thermal block within the actual brew group.
So it does that.
So it's a little bit different.
Yeah, because this thing could be ready to brew a shot of espresso. Turn it on with those capsule preheats in the group itself in 6 minutes.
Yep.
Which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah. Well, Nick picked us up there. I did see a question go by early. I'm guessing maybe Nick got on that one. You know, what's the difference between like a drive and a Synchronica 2? Basically, the control, like inside the boilers, are essentially the same. They are sister companies.
Yep.
And the drive, of course, put on the, as opposed to the Pro 700, which preceded it, put on the joystick quick steam valves, like you have on the Synchronica. Overall, Synchronica is just like a little more refined in the exterior finishing. There's the details like the tapered group, angled portafilter handles, that kind of thing.
And the thermal block is
that thermal block. You don't get that on the drive. Yeah.
A different kind of PID.
It does have a fast heat on the drive.
It does have a fast heat.
Yeah, which overheats the boiler, and then you do a little flush, and it can be ready in about 10, 11 minutes, as I recall.
And it still has pre-infusions and everything like that. So a little bit different. We've actually used the drive quite a bit with this press sensor as well. Very similar attributes. So when moving from machine to machine, the great thing about the press sensor is that you can still mimic any machine between these. You're just following that graph. So really utilizing the flow control. Now, when using the press sensor, I do recommend having flow control attached, because you know what's use of that information if you can't change it. So I do like to recommend having it.
It is true, but as we saw just right off the top, it can give you a pretty good idea just if you're dialing in a coffee, if you're in the right spot, right?
Exactly.
So with that coffee.
Yeah.
So let's see. Peter, the Bose tamper. I noticed you've omitted ECM from the list of machines you have tested compatibility with on your website sales page for the tamper. It's an E61. We've just about any E61. It's really not about the machine. Honestly, it's about the portafilter itself. If it's an E61, we do, you know, the BZ group portafilters work on it fine, the Bedzera ones. I think that's what the question is. Yeah.
Yeah, with the Bose tamper.
Yeah.
Compatibility with the ECMs.
Yeah, it's definitely compatible.
No, it should work. Yeah. Yeah.
Any E61, Gaja Classics.
Yeah, there's
all
just
the Bedzera machines.
There's like some machines, like let's say our Delacorte. That's a different kind of 58 millimeter.
Yeah.
It's very, very different. So I would say most standard 58 millimeter baskets and portafilters will work with that Bose.
So really the only thing is, you know, was talking to some folks about this. The only one that it's not going to work on, there are a couple of just pure black portafilters where even the lock-in tabs here are black.
Oh,
Since this uses a infrared reflection sensor to actually activate it, if it's black, it's not going to work.
Yep.
But any E61 portafilter should work in there. I haven't run into any yet that it won't.
Let's see. Andrew's saying that I think he thinks that we need some more double shots.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe, I don't know.
Well,
Just got a
I mean,
few
let's
here.
see. How many did we? Yeah, we did get to our 7, right? So we
think we
did
got
do 7. I can't
couple.
say I drank all 7, and we did split them, so they were. Oh, there they are. Thanks, Brian. Yeah, there is our spread of espressos.
Here's my favorite right here.
Let's see. I don't see enough. Oh yeah, here it is.
Oh, it doesn't affect me until I try to go to bed.
That's right. That's right. Thank
Too many
goodness
years
it's a
of it.
Friday. Maybe I get to sleep in tomorrow a little bit, huh?
Yeah,
So I got
maybe.
a feeling I'll be up late.
We'll see.
But anyways, well, let's see. I mean, if any other questions, maybe we got just a couple minutes left here. Zach, I really want to thank you for taking us through your knowledge here with the Pressensor. I know we've been playing around with it a lot together. In that other video we did, we got you into some fun goggles. You can even use it with the Apple Vision Pro in there.
Yeah.
Which you did. That was a lot of fun.
I try not to get too carried away, but if you all do want me to get carried away with a lot of the nitty-gritty science of things, let us know what you want to hear. So if you want to hear more about, you know, how things are affecting the permeability of your actual coffee within your basket, you know, we can definitely do some deep dives.
Well, I mean, here's one. Andrew is asking, best profile for body. What would you, so you're doing this coffee and you want to increase the body. Where do you go with that?
I mean, body really has a correlation with grind size. So that'll have a lot to do with the type of grinder you're using, the type of burrs you're using, that whole entire grind size profile, everything over there has to do with that. Now, in order to make the most out of your extraction, I would say pre-infusion has the largest thing to do with actually being able to extract most of that coffee that you have inside your basket.
I mean, one thing
that'll kind of give you the best body. It's just a simple pre-infusion, focusing on your actual grind size, though.
Now, one thing I found in general over the years is, you know, if you're gonna do those pre-infusions, I'm often finding myself grinding a little bit finer to slow down a shot. You know, they tend to come a little faster. Whereas I've done some shots where, you know, maybe like a lever shot where you're doing a lot of pressure right off the top, where it really pushes those fines right through the basket and really restricts things a lot.
Yeah. And I brought it up actually previously, the term fines migration too, where a lot of those fines and immediate solubles actually sink to the bottom first.
Yeah.
I think there's a theory out there, we call it like the nut theory, where you take a bag of nuts and a lot of the finer stuff is all at the bottom. It's just kind of how it all naturally happens. And a lot of that can kind of gunk up and create like a brick that's pretty difficult to kind of get through on the bottom, and they might even actually start coming out the holes towards the bottom and create lots of channeling and a bunch of issues where those are actually pretty immediately soluble with water. So if we really slowly saturate those, they actually are then turned into a liquid and can pass through a little bit easier. So
I see that request for using the metric system. You know, we really do try and do that. We were definitely measuring in grams and measuring flow in grams per second here. You know, if we're gonna you know, talk about in ounces or something, we usually do in a lot of our videos put up an equivalent in metric. Do want to also mention, that we're really starting to make use of our community tab on the YouTube channel. So please, interface with us there. One of the things we've done, over the years, we've been running this channel for, I don't know, what is it, like 13, 14 years now. And I did a count a couple weeks ago, and I think we've answered 14,000 questions. It's thousands of questions a year or more. And we give, we really like to interface with you guys and give direct responses. So if you want to get into that with us, get on that community tab there, doing a lot of interesting posts there. So, Zach, again, thanks a lot. We're going to wrap it up here. We're, oh my gosh, 15 seconds over. Thank you all for your questions and for participating with us with the Pressensor, Synchronica 2, the Chameleon, the really cool Bose tamper there. And we'll see you back here soon. We're doing these every Friday at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, you'll join John and I. Probably be going through some Varia goodies and VS6 things and talk a little bit about burrs as well. So,
all right, guys. Thanks a lot. Again, Zach and Marc, and we'll see you again here on our channel. Thanks for watching.